Oh my god, I gotta fix this. No BS thing. Because it's not coming through my speakers either. Ah, I found it. I found it. I found it.
All right. Well, we'll give it 2 more minutes. We'll start at 10:45.
Mhm. You know, the turning it off and on thing is it's still surprising how often it does work, whether it's the
It's a
app or the
mess
computer.
that it actually works, to be honest. Like, that's
I mean,
crazy.
this here printer behind me, it just needs a good on and off pretty much every time I try to print. And it lurks in that shadows of just annoying enough to or not annoying enough to actually take time every day to fix it permanently.
Oh my god. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's the printer driver situation all over again.
Yeah.
I fixed it.
Hmm.
They said they're gonna start in 2 minutes. That's good.
Well, this is good. We're kind of starting to stabilize out here, so maybe
Those are for you guys. Let's turn it up.
we'll
Yeah,
do
she just
launch.
put it on social, so I want to give it another
What's
minute,
up,
but
Sean?
Oh, I
What's
see. Okay.
then we can
up, Pepper? How
begin.
you doing, man?
Yeah.
What's up, Alexis? How you doing?
We're going to work our way down through the list of questions that you guys posted. Um, Obviously, there's going to be probably some overlap in some of the questions, so we might skip some as we go if we feel like it's been covered before. But obviously, we'll do our best to cover all the topics.
It doesn't.
Everybody
Yeah.
likes your
And
tattoos, Tyler.
It doesn't fill up the
if
thing
it,
though. Oh, hold up.
yeah, and if there's a couple, I mean, it's going to be hard to answer all of them, but we'll do our best. And obviously, there might be a few that we don't even know the answers to yet. So we'll either say so or just don't be offended if your question gets skipped. We're definitely attempting to hit a bunch.
Okay, you want to start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, my name is Chris. I'm the creative director and co-founder of Red Hook, and with
And
me is Tyler.
yeah, I'm Tyler Sigmund, the other co-founder, and then the game design director. And Chris and I have obviously been at the company since it was nothing. And I think one thing we wanted to get out of the way right up front is that even with this news, we are staying with the company. So we realized maybe that wasn't explicitly called out in some of the press releases, but we are hanging around.
Yeah, so obviously big news. After about 11 years of being independent, we explored and conversed and met with the people from Behavior, and over the course of the past 6 months, finalized a transaction to sell Red Hook to Behavior, and with the aim of continuing doing what we're doing and making even more Darkest Dungeon. Uh, the response to this news has been overwhelmingly negative. Um, Everywhere on Reddit and Twitter is a lot of doom scrolling, and I understand uh, where that comes from. I think
Cell's
the doom
terrifying.
posting is kind of made up of like three things, like fear, anxiety, and love, right? And so we wanted to just have a Q&A and speak directly to you guys and answer your questions as plainly as we can, and just explore this topic because it on reflection is not as sinister as it might feel despite the current context that in the video game market. So we'll just start off. Someone asks, Sorting Helmet asks about, an allusion to making Darkest Dungeon into a larger franchise and is curious about what that means. That really speaks to the reason why we explored doing this, right? We like a little amount of risk. You're looking at two guys who started a company with nothing, and then after a successful first game, changed the formula for the second game, and so we like aspiring to um, new and different challenges. And so we got excited about a bigger game, and we, quite frankly, can't take that swing alone. So it was a huge impetus to us to begin exploring, what it could look like and what the right partner uh, would look and sound like in order to accomplish kind of our creative goals. And when we sat down with Behavior and we outlined what it is we want to do, which we're not going to talk about, quite frankly, just to say that plainly, they were extremely excited, and it was that excitement coupled with their desire to let us to continue to develop the way we have that really set the stage for the meaningful discussions around the sale of the company.
That's about what we expected.
Yeah,
I don't know
and
if you want to add anything, Tyler.
the only button I want to add on that is like one thing that's been interesting for Chris and I. It was a decision we had to make when we went from DD1 to DD2, and continues to be decisions we make. Is that we love Darkest Dungeon, and we still enjoy. We feel like there's more to do in it, and I think that isn't a given because like as traders and stuff, you there's other ideas we have. But I think what one thing that happened when we looked at starting DD2 was just like, oh, we got really excited about an idea, and it was that made us want to do more stuff in Darkest Dungeon world. And I think that that remains. It's not to say like we may never do something else, but we just we have like a love. It's not like a prison. It's an opportunity to keep making DD stuff. So that was in our heads as well.
Wounding Helmet wants to know our favorite heroes. I've been asked this a million times. I can't pick. I love them all. They're all great. The Highwayman is the best, but not the best designed.
Yeah, answers change over time. I lately I've been going OG again, back to Plague Doctor, just because um it was such an unusual class at the time, and I know a lot of other games have since kind of featured Plague Doctors, and we weren't the first. But she's just really cool, and I think like Chris's design for her just really, you just immediately know it's Darkest Dungeon, and um yeah, she's great.
It's a weird way to say grave robber, but
So Loyal Signarin, I'm gonna screw up these names. Some of them are just wild. Uh, mentions that the article calls out a runway for future title and stability. Since DD1 was on Kickstarter and DD2 was on Epic, would we compare the acquisition to be the source of a third game for Red Hook? I mean, it's coarse, but essentially, the Epic deal, there was a lot of naysaying around that, and I think that in the end, it produced a better game than we would have without it. It
it's
was it
true.
was great for our studio. It allowed us to staff up. It allowed us to take a little bit extra longer in early access and really refine DD2, and we've continued to refine it since its launch. And this deal essentially secures our funding for our next title, which is, like I've said before, we have some bigger plans and some bigger ambitions for Darkest Dungeon. So yeah, and that's great uh, for our for our staff. Quite frankly, we
Mm.
take being employers very, very seriously. This is not a pleasant. These are the winter months in the game industry, and
Mhm.
while revenues were way up during COVID, and that led to a lot of overextending on behalf of a lot of these massive companies. We managed to weather the kind of lean years coming out of that pretty well. But Tyler and I always have to have our eye on what's next. So yes, the team's been working and doing amazing stuff on Kingdoms and Human Bondage DLC, but we have to be kind of 3-4 steps ahead of that and thinking about um, where we're going to be positioning ourselves, what we're going to be developing, and the scale at which we're going to be developing. So this partnership with Behavior, and I say partnership not to be businessy and euphemistic. They can't do what we do. They don't know how to do what we've done with a small team and the resources we have. And we don't have the resources and operational scale that they do. So it's a very, very good pairing, and I think it spells a great recipe for success for our next game.
He said sell though before, not
Yeah, a
partner.
lot of the questions probably, and a lot of the fear relates to this kind of stuff. But like you said, it's we're at a kind of an interesting size. Like or sorry, Red Hook only makes one game at a time currently, at least, and um, it's kind of like playing all in poker every hand is the reality. So we've been really fortunate. Dark's Dungeon is profitable. Dark's Dungeon 2 has been profitable, but there's still kind of like an existential threat if you're winning hands, but you push all in every single time you play a hand. And anyone who plays any poker knows that. I mean, you're a great favorite if you're 80-20, 75-25, 82-18. You do that a few times, like you could easily wipe out. And I think Chris and I are not afraid of risk. We are poker players. We've taken risks. We took risks with DD1. We took risks with DD2. We'll continue taking risks because we kind of feel like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But um, we also have kind of like a responsibility to try to be smart, with that. And we, being at kind of an interesting size of like Dark's Dungeon 2 took, I don't know, over $15 million to make. And that's not like a slam dunk.
15, right? 1-5.
15, yeah, 1-5.
Yep.
And that's not like a slam dunk to just make that back for sure. And so found ourselves kind of at an interesting size where like, we're kind of in between big and small. But for us, it always just comes down to what do we want to make. And so like Chris said, the cool thing here is like partnering with Behaviour kind of just secures us a roadmap of like what we want to do, continue doing with DD2, what we want to do with other stuff. And so we're excited. I mean that, like it's hard to tell from press releases and stuff, but Chris and I are actually excited because now we don't have to run around trying to figure out, exactly how we might fund the next thing or whatever. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, a quick follow up in the chat from Shuffles asking, "Are we going to get a spin off in the style of XCOM or Divinity: Original Sin?" I can't like it's too early to talk about what this next game is. I wish we could, quite frankly, but I like to show up, looking good for the party. So
Mhm.
when you see it, we're very sure that you guys are going to be have your minds blown. We're really excited about it. But what we're doing
New
right
game.
now, what we were doing in February before this was even a discussion, and what we're doing now is we're working on Kingdoms and the Catacombs DLC, and it's the same office, the same team, the same two of us, really bearing down and focusing on that to make sure that that is the best it can be. And then we'll spool off and start to prototype and explore in the vein of the next thing. But I can't comment.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're gonna have to move forward here.
Yeah.
Have we played Dead by Daylight? I haven't played Dead by Daylight. I watched a bunch of it, as part of my kind of due diligence. It's cool game design. I don't get a lot of times to play games, so I didn't like dive into it. Um,
That's a
but it's
lie. He
neat.
just plays Helldivers, so he doesn't have time for anything else.
Okay, that's true. That is more. I said I'd be honest. You're right.
Helldiver and gaming.
I haven't played since they buffed everything. One of the
Mm.
guys here that I play with rage quit, and then he's back after all the balance changes. So I gotta check
Oh
it
no, that sounds a little bit
out.
like Darkest Dungeon players.
Yeah. Um, has the acquisition significantly changed any plans for the future? Fuzzy Pickles 42, uh, or will it be steady as she goes with more names and a bigger budget? Um, I mean, kind of in
Yeah, I
the
can.
context of what we've just said.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
can take that. I mean, it does in the sense of like, and I guess I'll use a DD2 reference. You enter the region and you see paths ahead, and we feel like one path got scouted, and we liked what was in there, and we quite literally have been considering a variety of paths. And like Chris said at the outset, and some of you might not have been here for that, kind of what was really key for us is thinking about, well, what would we do if we partnered with someone like Behaviour and brought it to them and they were stoked. And so yeah, it changes the plans in the sense that it kind of like solidifies a route. And now we're following that route, and that's great. Some things it doesn't change as much, and this is for the better, I would say, is like the stuff we're doing on DD2 is the stuff we were planning on doing anyway. And in fact, we're kind of in a process right now. Like the acquisition just went through, but these take a little time to sort of integrate in all the ways that you might integrate. And we're in the normal process that Chris and I would be sans acquisition or without acquisition of just going, okay, cool. Like, what do we want 2025 to have in it? Obviously we're working on kingdoms and human bondage, but that's the kind of normal stuff we'd be doing anyways, trying to figure out what's next. So yeah, it's really nice to kind of like have a long-term plan fixed now. That is like great for our ability to continue like, I guess, fleshing that out and executing. So that feels really good because sometimes in this business, you kind of have to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C, and then like be willing to duck and dive based on what's happening. Chris and I have always been pretty good at that. You know, the Epic thing is another example. I know it made some people unhappy, but it was something we had to seriously consider and did, and we're glad we did. And so,
They're
you know,
right.
this kind of was a similar thing. We said, oh, here's a potential path, but now that it's locked in, it's kind of great for us, for our own mental state as well, because now it's just like, boom, let's run.
Boom.
British Brat and Diablo FDB in the chat both asked the same question about the level of oversight that Behavior is going to have on future development of
Chris is so
Darkest Dungeon.
nervous.
And all I can say is what has been communicated to us over, you know, many meetings, and that is they want us to continue making Darkest Dungeon content for supporting DD2. They really love our concept for the next game, and they don't want to destabilize us. That's been kind of a tent pole of all of the negotiations, all the discussions. And Tyler and I have been in the industry for quite a while. We have walked away from deal proposals where we thought it kind of started to stink, and it didn't feel like our
Yeah, next game is
ability to
news. So
continue to work the way that we have found some success would be preserved. We dumped it. We walked away. It was going to suck. This is not that. There is always risk. Okay, so like there's risk to staying independent, and there's risk to partnering. And I see a lot of people fretting over, and I understand it. Over the risks of partnering. You know, could they shut us down tomorrow? Could they quote unquote ruin um, DD2 or DD1 or force us to do weird collaborations that we don't want to do. Any of those things could theoretically happen. The same way there's a huge amount of risk to remaining independent. As Tyler pointed out, the budget for DD2 and the team size kind of puts us at an awkward like if you're thinking of a platformer, it's like we landed on the platform, it's cool, we can jump, but it's like it's shaking, we can't stay here. So change is going to come one way or the other, and this was the most right path. And I've said this internally so people behind me might roll their eyes, but if we're going to unpack the nightmare scenario of 6 weeks from now, we're being tightly controlled and muzzled, and all of our practices are changing, and we're getting our budgets cut, and people are telling us what Darkest Dungeon has to be. If we're going to really invest some mental energy into exploring what that looks like, we should also explore what it would look like on the success end of the spectrum to have a meaningful discussion about what are the realistic risks. And on the successful end of the spectrum, and certainly what we've spoken about, candidly with Behavior, and they've echoed back to us, is the success scenario is we continue to develop and support DD2 as we have been, and we move our team towards our vision for our next game. Meanwhile, we take advantage of their capacity to make more Darkest Dungeon. That's what the success kind of end of the spectrum looks like. There's risks both ways, but we feel like this is the most correct course of action for the company.
Yeah, I've got a little thing to add on that too, that just from kind of looking at some of the comments over the last 24 hours and stuff. I saw some people mention, like, for example, like the Risk of Rain deal. And this is not to throw anyone under the bus at all, because I think the people at Hoopu are awesome. Now they're at Valve. But they sold the IP in that scenario. The team didn't come along. I think, I can't speak for them, but my guess is they were just like, okay, cool. We did it. We made Risk of Rain 1 and 2. We don't really want to keep making it. We want to make something else. And Gearbox was like, oh, we love this game and we think we can do stuff with it. That I have no insider information on the deal. I'm just saying. But a big difference between that and here is that Chris and I are not leaving. We are staying, and we are remaining in charge of Darkest Dungeon.
Very important. They didn't sell the IP.
So I think like it's important to sometimes like make sure that apples aren't being compared to oranges in that regard. But yeah, I mean, all these paths have risk, and I think like the game industry is a very risk heavy industry. It's kind of like restaurants or something, like, I mean, I don't know any more about restaurants other than the factoids I hear about, 1 out of 10 succeeds or whatever. I mean, games are kind of similar. And it's a real privilege to have been around for 11 years with Red Hook. I mean, it's it's gone by in a flash, you know, in a way, and in other ways, it's kind of like our whole life. You know, it's a really really big meaningful part of Chris and I's life. I mean, we kind of pinch ourselves on a regular basis that we were able to make this game that we wanted to make, and then it succeeded. I mean, this is just, we've been on enough projects to know that is like rare. And so I think, you know, here again, um, it wasn't just us trying to elbow our way in and say, hey, Behavior, you know, we kind of want to stay and keep working on it. It was quite the opposite. They're like, we're only interested if you guys are staying. You know, we want you guys to do your thing. We love it. It fits in our portfolio. And
In
so I
fact,
think that's really different.
we are wildly tethered to staying.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
So I
good
think that's
news.
just a different from a lot of things, from a lot of acquisitions that we see that kind of um, go poorly. The other thing is, you know, one thing we liked is their strategy, the House for Horror, and we feel like we fit in that. You know, we feel like we fit in that more so than just a company that's like, let me see your financials. Cool, that looks good. By the way, what do you do? What do you make? You know, it wasn't like that at all. And so I think, and we look, it's not easy to get noticed. I mean, we're lucky we have this brand that, you know, has a chance. But so allying with someone to try to improve our own ability to get Darkest Dungeon noticed is helpful as well. So anyway, that's just some of the details that I think are really like key when I was kind of seeing some of the, yeah, like Chris was saying, worst case scenario stuff. But yeah, there's always a risk when you sell your baby. You know, we have bosses now, but Red Hook itself is though continuing to operate much the way it was.
yeah, that's well said. And it touches on some of these other questions here. I'm gonna have to skate through because we are actually like still on the first page of questions. But
You're right, Elf.
you know, a common concern from Tranquil, you know, the acquisition parent company meddling in the development process. Again, anything can happen. It's a high risk industry, as Tyler
Oh,
very put it very well. Um, Everyone we have spoken to ever in every meeting at Behavior is staunchly committed to what we've dubbed the island model, where we continue to operate as an entity supported by, enhanced by Behavior's capability and scale, but not directed by. Um, as long as we continue, you know, if we're independent and we fail to create cool stuff, market it well, develop it on a reasonable timeline, and keep our budgets in good shape, we will fail. And I believe that that just remains true in this circumstance.
Mm.
true.
Um, what can you say to convince Darkest Dungeon fans who do not wish to financially support Behavior as a company to continue to purchase Red Hook DLC and future games? Lil Pie Dude. There's nothing that I can say to coerce you to support a company that you don't want to support. All we can say is that we're going to do our best to make the coolest shit we possibly can,
Buy the
and
plushies.
we believe that we create a lot of fun and suffering and value,
Mhm.
and we're the same team and the same people making it. But I'm not going to try to sell you anything.
Yeah,
Good
I
man.
mean, I have a slightly different tack, which is just if you want to continue to see Darkest Dungeon stuff, buying Darkest Dungeon stuff is the way in which we remain employed and our team remains
That's a
employed and
better
we
way
keep
to put
making
it.
Darkest Dungeon stuff. No, but I don't disagree with what you said, Chris. I mean, I think that's a point. Like, it's look, we all have the right to yeah, to feel
Yeah, they're
how we
giving us a
feel
free
about
game mode.
companies, people, etc. And you know, and being part of a bigger company is a bit of us just saying, okay, well, we still have our yard to take care of over here, you know, which is the Darkest Dungeon playhouse or whatever.
Yeah,
And
I
we want to
guess I
keep
just
making
want to
stuff.
underscore, like, oh, sorry, man.
No, that's fine.
I just want to underscore that, you know, we're not doing even the Q&A to convince, we're not going to convince you of a perspective. All we can do is share what we believe our reality
Mhm.
is and shed some light on our decision making process, and kind of highlight, you know, what is most important to us. More Darkest Dungeon, the security and longevity of our ability to employ our very talented team, and insulating them from the ebbs and flows of the market, and ambition and risk taking, quite
Mm.
frankly, taking a big
Ambition.
swing. These are the kinds of ingredients that are at play for us. Um, what was the name of Baldwin's kingdom?
Oh,
We don't
that's a
do proper nouns that
that's a great
often.
one. Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
We borrow, a lot of the heroes' names are borrowed from history and stuff, which seemed
Yeah.
fine at the time. Baldwin is, of course, the leper king of Jerusalem. But now, yeah, I don't know. We don't do proper nouns. It's the Hamlet. It's,
Yeah. It's not literal
what,
Jerusalem.
yeah. May we do a slight, Chris and I early on, we have a bit of a shared. How do I say this? Uh, you grow up reading a lot of fantasy, and of course there's a lot of proper names, Tolkien being the best at this. And then a lot of, a lot. And when you read a lot, at some point you're like, oh gosh. And so I think a little bit of Darkest Dungeons lore is a bit of a reaction against, oh man, now we have to create our own set of fancy names for all the kingdoms and all the, and so we just said, what if we don't?
Yeah. We're taking a stance against apostrophes in fantasy names. What would DD2 have looked like if we'd gone ahead with the sci-fi tank crew idea? I don't know. We had this idea for
Oh,
DD2 where you were in a tank and you were going across this like apocalyptic kind of war zone planet inspired by like Rogue Trooper. I don't know if anybody's read that comic from back in the day in the UK.
and we
Um,
watched
and
Fury.
the idea was, yeah, and we watched
Fury.
Fury, and it's amazing. But we had
The
this
Hell's
idea that
movie.
like Wayne would be talking to you over the radio, like you wake up out of stasis and you're in your tank and the war's kind of over and you're trying to make your way to like this extraction shuttle thing and he's like talking to you the whole time. And then when you get there, he's just an AI and the last shuttle left like 200 years ago or something.
Spoilers.
I don't know. It's kind of a cool idea.
Huge
But
Yeah.
spoilers.
we realized we'd have to like parody our own character classes and turn them all sci-fi-y, and we wanted to do more with our heroes. So we kept it a stagecoach.
Yeah, that was really what swept us back, right? Is realizing, we had done the comics and all that kind of stuff, and it was like, wow, this would be really cool to explore the heroes' backstories in a mechanical way, as you see with the hero shrines, which, gosh, they were a lot of work, and I hope people like them, but I know that they've been a source of but we were, I mean, from the beginning, we were championing ourselves over that. Like, what a great idea. But I think that was just something we really wanted to do, and I think that swung us back from doing other stuff. Is we're like, you know what? It's kind of like settling into your favorite chair in your library and getting a nice glass of brandy or something, and getting to spend more time with the characters. That, at least for me, that was a big thing that swung us back to making DD2, because there was definitely a phase there between Color Madness or whatever where we're just like, okay, no more Darkest Dungeon for a while, like for years, please. And we ended up coming back around.
There's a lot of questions around modding and mod support. Will our
Mm.
mod plan and approach to modders change as a result of this?
Modding question.
Um, this has not been a subject of any discussion in the direction of making any changes or
Mhm.
adjusting how we treat modders. We really tried to go to the wall for modders on DD1. We exposed a lot of stuff. It was our pleasure to do it. We're making the same strides there on DD2 as well, and it's not been a subject of like no one has told us we have to ratchet that down or um, adjust our approach. We recognize. I think everyone recognizes that modding is healthy for the game, and
Mhm.
a healthy community. You guys even being here is a great sign for us. Um,
Mhm.
and the modders out spending their personal time, investing their time and energy into our kind of world or their version of our world is fantastic for us. It's fantastic for the health of the game and the community. So there's no desire in as much as has been expressed or discussed in any way that would see us pivot off of that support for
No
modders.
cease and desist orders.
Yeah, and I mean the only reason we haven't done more and sooner on DD2 is we just are too busy, and it's harder. Unfortunately, the way DD2 was constructed, it's a bit harder to mod, so it took us quite a while to get what we got out. But it's not out of any sort of internal change of heart of like how we feel about modding. And yes, this is like our kind of mandate, if you want to put it that way, is like keep doing cool Darkest Dungeon stuff, guys. And so, we want the community to be healthy, et cetera. So I mean, a hard part, and this is true before the acquisition, is there's more cool stuff we could do than we have resources for. And Chris and I've always been reluctant to sort of like do too many things at a time. So we have our own backlog of quality of life stuff for DD2 or whatever, and so that just remains the same before and after. Is like we want to do what's best for the game, and having a healthy community of people playing, healthy community people modding, is great. We love it. So
The jiggle physics.
And that's part of the thing that we're empowered to do. With a little bit more horsepower behind us, we can tackle a greater diversity of kind of projects or initiatives. So our goal is to give you what we think you want, which is more Darkest Dungeon. And on that note, Obby Borg is asking about like transmedia stuff, comics, cartoon, that kind of thing. It's something that we've explored actually. It's very tricky to get that stuff made. But again, with some dedicated resources and not just me taking a few meetings here and there over the years, we have a much higher likelihood of securing a deal. And again, this is kind of like goes back to that partnership with Behavior. They can put dedicated specialists towards securing these types of things in a way
That's
that we
cool.
can't. We don't have the scale to do it. And Tyler and I, for better or worse, our entire studio is built on the notion that Tyler and I want to work on the video game that we make. We want to be hands on. Like I draw icons, he works in spreadsheets. We're not just sitting in a room kind of managing a team. And that means that we can't do everything all the time, all at once. But now, with a little bit more capacity behind us, we're going to be able to meaningfully explore some of this stuff, and hopefully, bring more to you, and obviously still oversee and make sure that the quality is great and that everything fits together tonally, thematically. It's still Darkest Dungeon.
The woke game curators won't be happy about this. I think people have asked about Kingdoms already, but we'll see.
Okay, so British Brat asks, I think a lot of people have concerns that Red Hook is in the red financially and thus needed the deal in order to keep the doors open. While I don't think that was the case, I know it was discussed.
Tough
What
questions.
can we talk about there? I think that's a great one. You want to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, categorically, no, we weren't in the red. We have money saved. But like I said a little while ago, I mean, I think there's still a difference between being kind of like stable and, hey, do we have a spare 20 mil sitting around to do the next thing? And if we do we want to push all in on it, every time? But no, the beauty is like we were, I mean, we are very fortunate. Like many of our friends' studios have been shutting down over those last couple of years. It's a tough time in the industry right now.
Yep.
It's not something we take for granted. I mean, we took some of the Epic money and stashed it away. We took, some, fortunately DD1 still sells and all that kind of stuff. And so, comparatively, we're in a great spot. But that's why this was like really an opportunity, like a partnership of opportunity rather than of desperation. So yeah, categorically, no, we weren't desperate, but and that gave Chris and I the necessary like leverage to be able to be like, hey, if we don't like how this is sorting out, like we'll just walk away. And we could have at any point. And so I think being in a stable position gave us the strength to try to pick a good partnership. It's like I've been, in the past single, and there's times where you're feeling lonely, you're like, oh, I guess I'll just go on whatever date. That was not our case.
Please don't do this. Please don't.
No, it's all right. As an analogy, it's just like, we got to choose what we felt was the right path forward. So that's the advantage of being in a good spot.
We did extra lore, extra comics, blah blah blah. We would love to. That sounds awesome. Can we expect new colors for each hero in the future? Some of these are very specific to the game, and I'm not glossing over them because they're not exciting. But I want to spend as much time as we can hitting the real meaty stuff and exploring the stuff around the current news. If there's demand, like we're happy to do more Q&As and really focus on like
They
what can
should.
we expect in kingdoms or whatever. But I want to make sure that while we have some of this audience of kind of core community members, that we really hit the meaty stuff. And one of the comments here that has a fair amount is mentioning the unfulfilled the Mythic board game. We don't know exactly what is up over at Mythic. We know that our team also hasn't received some of their supplies or their updates to the game, and so we're kind of just waiting to see how it plays out. We're a little bit in the same boat as you guys.
Shame. They have
Yeah,
no
I mean,
control of it.
being a licensor, you have limited power. We are not board game manufacturers. Um, we don't have windows into the exact processes. We have a limited amount of things that we could do, and our focus has always been on just hoping that they can carry through and deliver. I mean, I personally have 3 or 4 copies of the board game in my closet here, but I'm waiting for wave 2 like everyone else. And
Tyler.
yeah, that's a tough thing. It's a tough business, and we don't have total visibility. So, and one of the limited things we can do is like pull our license, but that seems like extremely unproductive
It
towards
zeroes
the
out the
idea of,
chance of it ever
yeah,
happening if we did that, right?
yeah.
So I mean, we could kill it or we could cross our fingers, and we're kind of
I
in
agree.
the latter camp. Related, I guess, is sorting helmet. I guess it's a Harry Potter thing. Um, Wants to know if we'd ever do cross promotions or having behavior stuff in Darkest Dungeon, whatever. Our mantra has always been, and I'll continue to fight for this, is that nothing goes into Darkest Dungeon. If you want to put the Plague Doctor or the Crusader in something, cool. Uh, you know, I know that the DBD content pipeline is jam packed for like years to come. So I don't think it's likely that, next week we're going to get Plague Doctor Survivor in DBD. But nothing's coming into Darkest Dungeon that doesn't belong in Darkest Dungeon. That's what makes Darkest Dungeon work. You can't be this melodramatic, this overwrought, this committed to being absolutely gothically emo and grotesque and cosmic horror. You can't do all of those things if you're breaking the fourth wall and winking at the audience. So the security of the borders around the Darkest Dungeon IP are necessary for it to remain plausible as its own fiction, if that makes sense. So no, we don't want to bring. I like doing little nods. Here and there, like Black Phillip or things like that. Uh, but there will never be, a Gundam in Darkest Dungeon, even though I love Gundams.
Relevant answer.
Okay, sorry, in your interview with game developer. Tyler, yeah, in what ways does the acquisition reduce risk for
Mm.
us?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've said it a couple times, but just knowing kind of what we're working on, and that we have initial funding set up for it, is a huge reduction of risk. Allowing to try to penetrate through the noise of the marketplace, by having a big brother, is it reduces risk. Yeah, and all those are like super tangible, and honestly that's kind of where we started with our staff as well. Our staff did not know this was coming until last week, and so we had to sit down and tell them that that their dads have new dads, because we're the dads around the office. But
Almost.
it it really is tangible, like, and for those in development, like, it can't be kind of overstated right now how it's tough out there, and a lot of good people are without jobs and things, or at risk of being without jobs. And so Chris and I felt definitely a heavy responsibility to try to pick a path through the biome, through the region, that made sure
Those boiled
everyone's jobs on our
EGS.
team were secure, and we feel this path was the best one to do that. Again, like there's, it's hard to, it's not like it's riskless, but there was a lot of other paths that kind of had what we believe is more risk. So yeah, I mean, it's not this, but for us, like being able to combine that risk mitigation with creative fulfillment of getting to work on what we want to work on is like the real winning combination. I mean, I think there's lots of times in business you're pushed into situations where you might take the risk mitigation path, but you feel like it's a real trade-off. You're like, well, this is great because it mitigates risk, but I guess we're making Barbie games or whatever. We didn't have to do that. So, we feel like we kind of got to have the cake and also eat it. But it definitely is a tangible sort of like lining that runway for continue to work on stuff for the foreseeable future. And if we drop the ball for years in a row, I mean, we're going to be in trouble. But that would be, if we were independent, we would be in big trouble in that scenario as well.
Serious question. Behavior's closed down multiple studios and failed products in the past. Why Behavior? Is it just since they are Canadian, so it's easier? Nothing about being acquired is easy. Nothing about making a game is easy. So it's not about that they were an easier choice. Every business in the last couple of years, I mean, has faced their share of challenges.
Mhm.
Making a game is a high risk enterprise. We've talked about that earlier. So shipping it is fantastic, and not every game is going to end up with perfect 10 scores. We've been there. Behavior's been there. Um, these are kind of just the naked realities of working in the games industry. We don't have
Mm.
transparency into everything that has gone on at Behavior since their inception or in the past like 3 to 5 years. And certainly it was really unfortunate to get the news about the Seattle studio at the same time as we're announcing our partnership. It definitely took the wind out of the sails, and I think cast a long shadow. More importantly, though, from what we've learned, Behaviors offered severance to that group and offered relocation packages to that group.
True.
So although canceling a project and closing a studio is never great, they're doing it in the right way. Um, we're not in the same situation as that group. Uh, we run a profitable business. We have our own development practices that have borne fruit and are demonstrable in the industry. Um,
Demonstrable.
so we're fundamentally not a splinter of Behavior, but like I said earlier, more of an island. And our task is to continue to perform as we have been, to keep our community strong, and keep making the things that we like and that we think that you guys will like, and keeping the Darkest Dungeon and an engine uh, moving as we have been, as opposed to being a splinter studio tasked with an internal project. It's just a different paradigm altogether. But I don't want to shy away from that question, because does it suck that a bunch of fellow game developers
Mm.
were forced into an unpleasant situation? It 100% does. And I wish there had been more time between those announcements, or at least some kind of an affirmative resolution on the Midwinter side, so that we weren't kind of jammed up so close together. Because it doesn't feel good for me to be excited about our future, knowing that there are people who are, adversely affected. But
Mhm.
I don't think that it's about carelessness or maliciousness or anything negative like that. It's just the unfortunate kind of reality of the market in the recent times. And like Tyler mentioned, many of our peers have struggled. Some of our dearest developer friends have gone through really, really hard times trying to keep their businesses afloat, facing the reality of layoffs, closing studios. So this is not a unique phenomenon. It's
No.
horribly unfortunate, and it's tragic that it isn't unique. Uh, but it is, unfortunately, a regular thing that's been happening as all these businesses try to recalibrate and correct themselves.
Yeah, and most companies, like a bigger company, like let's just look at how publishers work. I mean, many of you may not know, but like a game publisher makes 10 games because they hope that one is a hit and a couple pay for themselves, and that pays for the 6 or 8 that lose money. And so they insulate themselves by taking multiple bets. I mentioned all in poker before. Well, all in poker, isn't as bad if you can rebuy, because that okay, this is a good percentage play. So if I bust here, I'll just go reload. And I think that's not meant to sound callous. That's what they have to do. They have to take a portfolio approach because look, nobody knows how to make a hit reliably every time. I mean, some people manage to do it, but it should never be taken for granted. And I think that so in the context of behavior, there are 1,200 people. I don't actually remember offhand right now what the size of Midwinter is, but Red Hook is 29 people. It's not exactly apples to apples again. And the other analogy I would use, and this is, I'm not speaking for behavior. We don't have any inside information. We didn't learn until basically the day before it was announced, because I mean we were the acquisition was not complete yet, so we shouldn't have known anyway, and we didn't. But what I was going to say is, like, if you are managing a hockey team, you might have too many good goalies and you need a defense person, you need a winger, and so the headline might like read, why did they just hire a winger when they just let a goalie go? But it's not, it makes sense, right? You're like, you have too many goalies, and not all jobs are fungible. In games, it's not quite as easy as just saying like this team of 10 can do what any team of 10 can do. They might be very specialized at one thing, and this team's very specialized. And I don't know, again, this is not me speaking for behavior, but I get the feeling that it was a separate issue of like, how's that game going, whatever, how's the studio going, and meanwhile we want to build the house for horror, and here's an IP, Darkest Dungeon, that we want to add. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate timing. And every article that Chris and I read yesterday mentions them both. And of course, because if you're covering the news, this is behavior news, these things happen at the same time, but I don't think they are necessarily related.
Someone in the chat, the awkward Hetty, says that he can't help but feel the modding part was glossed over a tad. I don't actually agree. I'm not quite sure what else we can say about modding, but will DD1 be touched again? Potentially, certainly more potentially now than 6 months ago. Will projects be halted due to IP?
Infringement.
BR, Black Reliquary, or the Backport projects? Those are mods, and we don't have any. I think I was pretty clear about our continued commitment to modding remaining, the way it is. So we may go back and look at DD1 if we feel like there's a good opportunity or something exciting we want to do, and we have no plans to suddenly cease and desist some of these more ambitious mod projects. We've supported Black Reliquary actually. To a borderline inconvenient degree. Like, it's a lot of emails. We've done a lot of stuff. We've worked with them pretty regularly, despite it not being our core focus. We've tried to set them up for success. So
They normally
I
don't
think
work with
the
mods
proof
like
is
that
kind of in the
either.
pudding there. There's a bunch of questions about more Wayne lines, more music. Our updates always feature more Wayne lines and more music, so definitely look forward to that. More layer bosses, a lot of like content stuff that I'm reticent to touch on in this particular Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, what we could say just generally is, in the same way that this led to Kingdoms, we try to look at what would be really cool to add to the game, what's good bang for the buck. And sometimes it's not the super obvious things. Like, would we like to add a new region? Absolutely. We just didn't feel at the moment per se that adding like a full that adding a full region was the thing the game desperately needed the most right now. I know I'm not saying everyone agrees with that viewpoint. I'm just saying Chris and I, wanted to do some other stuff, and that ultimately has led to, for example, Kingdoms. But that's not to say we shut the door on those other things. And the bottom line is kind of like, if people are buying stuff and we can make it and not lose our shirt on it, we want to keep expanding the game. I mean, we love it. And with DD1, we eventually stopped making content, not because it wasn't profitable. It was just because we felt like we needed to make the next thing. But kind of a beauty in this scenario, I mean, like, if you want to just look at it from like, what does this acquisition mean to you as a Dark Dungeon gamer? is like there's more chance of us being able to do more things now, because we just have a little more resources to bring to bear. So there's more chance of continued DD1, DD2 stuff while still doing whatever the mysterious next thing might be.
AY professor, uh, I like some of these like brutal questions. How can the community be certain that statements made by Red Hook are true to Red Hook's interests and not merely a reflection or reflex of behavior's interests? Basically, how can we know that Red Hook has not become a puppet company? Um, I don't know that I think in those terms. You're hearing from the two people who founded, um, ran, managed, contributed to 11 years of Darkest Dungeon, and we're continuing to run and contribute to more Darkest Dungeon. Um, we're not a political organization. I don't think we need to sanitize our speech to that level of degree. Uh, we're here representing what we feel is important to us and to our staff and our team and to you guys, and just outlining the reasons why we thought this was just a great opportunity to seize. Um, and we'll have to just hope that you can hear the earnestness and the honesty in that. We believe this is the absolute best path forward for Red Hook and for Darkest Dungeon. There's a movie called A Most Violent Year. It's one of my favorite movies, and there's an amazing bit at the end where the protagonist, who's under pressure like the whole time, he says, I've always believed in doing what is most right, and that really has stuck with me for years now because it allows for the fact that there is no absolute correctness, certainly not in kind of business or creative enterprise, but there is a most right path, and I think that's what this is.
Yeah, and we don't have arms inside of us puppeting us right now.
Yeah,
Do we care about what behavior thinks? Yeah, they're a partner that we just are, setting up potentially years and years of collaborative work together with, and have done nothing to make us not want to trust them and collaborate with them. And I hope they feel the same way about us. But like a big part of this was Chris and I trying to like open ourselves up through the process and be like, this is how we operate. This is how we make decisions. This is what we would do. This is, like Chris said at the outset, here's a game we would love to make, all that kind of stuff. So I think that like, um, I don't know, like we're too feral to go immediately from 11 years of doing our own thing to being puppeted instantly. So I think, in the future, as things progress and we continue making things and rolling it out, um remember that not everything we do meets with resounding success with all of you normally. And so when we do a thing and you're like, that's bullshit, just remember we've been quite capable of doing bullshit for 11 years. Um, and it's not necessarily because we're being puppeted. We may just have done a
yeah.
thing that you dislike again. Um, Obviously, we hope to please
Obviously,
all of you.
it'll never happen, and that's why I said earlier, like, if Kingdoms comes out and you don't like some stuff in it, it has nothing to do with the behavior acquisition. Like we have designed and worked on Kingdoms the same identical process that we've used all the way through. Same thing with Inhuman Bondage. Same thing with our next game. There was a question here about the timeline, saying word on the street is behavior approached us, but we had this game idea. The way it went down straight up is that we met with their VP of product at GDC a year ago, March,
Yeah, they go to
and
GDC
just
yearly.
had a great chat. He's a very candid, plain spoken guy and immediately had a good chemistry. We talked lightly over the coming year, and then things got serious at GDC this year. And they said, okay, well, what would it look like if we were to partner? And we said, this is what we want to do. What do you think? And they said, that sounds fucking amazing. And that's where things started. Sorry, I'm scrolling as I go.
No, it's good.
Is Red Hook doing fine after behavior acquired it? Blink twice if no, once for yes.
Wait, blink. Are we doing fine once? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing fine. Yeah, just the
All
one
right.
blink
Yeah,
on
no,
my
I just
phone.
didn't want to get it wrong and then accidentally send the wrong message. I'm glad it wasn't
Do you
asked
guys?
like, is behavior not doing not fine or something? Because it would be a
Yeah,
very high
and
risk
I mean, straight,
question.
we're figuring this out. Like, it is going to be different for Red Hook
Yeah.
and different for Behavior. They have never had a studio like ours partnered to them, but not inextricably attached to their processes. And we have never had a bigger umbrella organization. So, are things going to be identical? Absolutely not. That would be naive. But that doesn't mean things are going to be worse. I think that actually things are going to be better in the ways that we've outlined. Um, more more Darkest Dungeon, a bigger swing, some bigger risks, more diversity of catalog. All of these things are kind of more within our grasp as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, and a little bit of potentially improved day-to-day focus for Chris and I, to be honest.
I
What,
should have
you
said
know,
that.
none of you could possibly see in the background is how much time that we have to spend in certain business development or other businessy things. And while yes, there will be businessy things to do with behavior, we're trying to set things up in such a way that actually just bottom line allows Chris and I to spend more of our day looking directly at the game than we currently do. I mean, we still spend a lot of our day, and of course, we work on the game, etc. Like he wasn't exaggerating about him drawing icons and me being a spreadsheet, but due to the rigors of and the responsibilities of running the shop in the way we have for the past 11 years, there's a lot of time spent doing stuff that does not go into the game. And some of those things, behavior is going to help us with a little bit, legal stuff like that. Like these are good things that they're helping us with that. The bottom line is like, I will get to spend more time looking at the game. Chris will get to spend more, that's the theory anyway. And that's how we're trying to build
Yep.
and structure it.
They even talked, like, when we met them, and they're like, gave this kind of presentation on how they thought it could work. They're like, and we will have to take over, legal and finance. And we're like, please, like, by all means, that sounds amazing for us. Uh, we want to
Yeah.
make video games, not not those kinds of spreadsheets. Um, One question about kingdoms that I think is good to answer. It came up a little bit earlier in the chat. How should we understand the new design of Darkest Dungeon 2 Kingdoms? Simply speaking, Darkest Dungeon 1 remake with DD2 assets, or is it a complete overhaul in terms of how it is played? It's a remix of DD2, and I want to be clear about that.
Mhm.
You're going to drive your coach. You're going to go through regions. They're rebalanced and truncated. The goal of kingdoms is different than the main mode, and I guess canonically kind of happens after the main campaign. So the big existential cultist threat has been eliminated, and this is now kind of in the aftermath of that. And you'll move around the kingdom, facing these kind of new threats and trying to keep things safe. But it is not DD1 in DD2, but it is not DD1 Confessions. It's definitely kind of a remix album on DD2, and the more we play it internally, the more we develop it, the more of an identity it takes on. And we're going to be starting, secret, private, closed testing of it in the next little while, and we're hoping that it finds some legs.
Testing.
Oh, sorry, this follow up. Will all Kingdom faction modules be free? Yeah, the three that we've mentioned are free updates to the game. There's a lot of questions about, will there be more DD2 support? Will there be more DLCs? And I think it just goes back to what Tyler said. If they finish in the black and they sell well, we'll make more. If they tail off and we're spending more than we're earning on them, there won't be. So the best way to ensure, and it sounds like a plug, but it's just the truth. The best way to ensure more and more DD2 content and expansion and growth, um, is to buy the stuff that we make, and we'll continue to make it. And the beauty of this behavior thing is that, we're now positioned in such a way that we can continue to serve DD2 so long as it's profitable and make progress on on our bigger plans. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Whereas in our current setup with our current, you know, war chest and team size, we would not be able to do that.
Wonder
Yeah,
if I can
and
get more
that
sponsors.
profitability word, I don't want to scare people. That would be true if we had remained independent. Um,
Yeah.
we would have to look at these things and say, oh, well, that one didn't attach or that didn't sell so well. Maybe it's not so smart to spend 9 months on this package or whatever it is. So that's not like the behavior suits are in the building, kind of driving that decision. It's a decision we would have had to put on our own suits and make on our own. And I think that like yeah, it's a hard part of the business of having to look at that, but I mean, hopefully you see like Kingdoms is an enormous amount of work, and we decided to release it for free, because we just think it's cool and we feel like it's the right decision to do, um, to maybe continue growing the game and I don't know, give people cool free stuff sometimes. And we're going to release Inhuman Bondage, which will be paid. So if you feel like you're happy with what we did, like pick up Inhuman Bondage and show your support that way. But we experiment with these things too, and our the health of the game and overall success of the game is not driven by just like what can we make and what's the highest price we could possibly charge for it. I mean, we're constantly trying to look at that stuff. Pricing is like a real black art, like yes, we charged more for DD2 than DD1. It was a bigger game. It took longer. It took more people. It took more money to make. So we thought maybe that was appropriate. But I don't know. We know if we picked the right price for that? Not sure, but that kind of went into our decision making of Kingdoms of like, hey, a lot of probably everyone here bought DD2 for full price, when it came out, and we're extraordinarily grateful. I mean, that you're part of the community, buying the game, making content, just playing it. It doesn't, just those of you that just play, those of you that mod, like those of you that are in our Discord making it alive. I mean, that you're all part of making this game succeed, and our goal is to give you good stuff at a good price, and hopefully we like to read those things when someone's like, oh, I have 400 hours in the game and I paid $20 for it. Like, great, that's good value, and I hope people feel that way. We're not reaching into your pockets every hour that you play to try to grab coins. So
Which is something that has come up, on the Reddit more predominantly, but I think it was mentioned here in the Discord question
Reddit.
stack. Are suddenly now we're going to have microtransactions because Dead by Daylight has microtransactions. Like, we're not going to overhaul the Darkest Dungeon 2 business model a year plus after its release to somehow turn it into something that it isn't. That's never how we've operated in the past. Um, and looking ahead to our next title, um, we're agnostic of business model in that case. We're going to develop the game we think is great and then build what we feel is an ethical and fair business model around it. um, Everybody said early access was dead, and then we did early access really, really well, and then people were like, oh, maybe it's not such a bad idea. Everybody said the battle pass type model was terrible, and Helldivers came out and did it frankly very, very ethically. And there's been very, very little complaints about how they approached it. So there's always a solution if you keep your principles and your values in mind, and that's what we've always done, and that's what we're going to continue to do. um, So yeah, we're getting like a fair amount of like kind of more specific questions and
absolutely.
retreads. Books, comics,
Told you an
movies,
hour.
TV. Would love to do that stuff.
Mm,
More able to do it
mhm.
now with a little bit more capacity. I mentioned that earlier, but that's come up a few times. Maybe some late joiners. Um,
They're trying to go. It's been an hour.
Apparently that business model is even harder than games.
yeah,
Somebody-
cartoons
They do.
sound terrible. Every
Oh,
time we get to
yeah.
talking, it seems like a just a gong show. But I would sure love it. That would be amazing. Yeah, I think we've covered all the big beats. I've seen a lot of support here for doing more Q&As and stuff in the future, and that's totally fine. We'd love to. Part of the reason that we've had to be dark a little bit over the dark from a leadership standpoint, like our team has put out 3 console SKUs, a massive modding update, regular character path reworks, and tons of quality of life in this calendar year. Meanwhile, the people you haven't heard from on the team have been working steadily and nonstop
Mm.
producing the content that you will ultimately consume by virtue of Kingdoms and Inhuman Bondage. There's um, tons of new enemies, some really cool secrets and surprises in both kind of packages. Um, but we haven't been able to really talk about it because we've been locked up in a lot of pretty high level serious conversations, and we wanted to give the team time to kind of cook. But as we kind of start rumbling and shifting our weight around and getting closer to some of these releases, you're going to hear more from us. You're going to get more light shed on it. We're not being overly secretive for any other reason than capacity and being ready. We don't want to show you guys half broken stuff. That was a very popular thing to do back when we were really starting out and we were like extremely like indie. A lot of people love to show off the work in progress, and I get the appeal of that, but it's just never been something we do. We kind of like to show up dressed to impress, and we're getting our suit on over here. Oh, this is maybe one last one. You said Behavior
What's up,
super
Omni?
stoked for your next game. If they were disappointed in another game idea you wanted to make, would you need to change the idea? I don't know, because that is kind of like an 8-year out question. We have assuming continued support, we have a rich future ahead for DD2. We have the game that kind of was the foundational um, the foundation of this acquisition, the game that we're really excited to make, that they're excited to make. And so by the time we come face to face with a game idea that they may not like, we have to have years of successful and profitable development behind us. So although it's a fair question, it's not a relevant one just yet, because we're kind of all consumed with the things we already know that everybody's really excited about. Behavior's excited about Kingdoms. They're excited about our next thing. So are we, and that's good enough for me. Like, my table is full with that.
I am the Overlord.
Yeah, there's.
Um, I, yeah. Do you want to say any closing perspectives?
Would you
The
1
Tyler
hour?
minute.
I mean, I'm just skimming some of these other. Andy the Brave says, is there some options for more accessibility features? The reason I want to answer that one is like it kind of speaks to kind of a broader question of like improving the game versus adding to it. And that's something we definitely struggle and juggle. It's hard because of our team size, et cetera. That, for example, there's been a number of sort of quality of life improvement stuff that we've had literally on the docket since January. I mean, our producer's in this chat, and he knows well about this, and he's kind of
John.
often a voice that's coming to Chris and I and saying, "Hey, could we do this?" And a lot of times, Chris and I have to say, "No, not right now," because I think we're trying to do too many things, and so. We're trying to strike a balance between adding things to the game, some of which that we can charge for, um, and then also improving the game. And it's hard because Chris and I have to step back sometimes and be like, okay, well, like, what's the big bang for the buck? But I think the accessibility one is an interesting one. Like, we kind of are in a situation right now where um, there's more good feedback than we can act on at the moment. And that's always the case with games, but it's certainly the case when you are lucky enough to reach a bigger audience. So, but that being said, like, we read the feedback, we capture a lot of it. We just sometimes are having to make hard choices where we're like, well, do all these things or continue velocity on Kingdoms, or do all these things or get consoles out the door. And that's just it's an ongoing challenge. And I guess I don't really have a specific answer than other than to say we're interested in continuing to improve the game and add to it, and we're going to try to strike a balance. So I think those accessibility things, I mean, are important. I mean, I think we did some things design wise at the end of the early access to make it where, like, look, you can steer the coach if you want, but you don't have to. You can kind of just make your decisions when you reach an intersection, and those icons pop up and you can go left or right or straight. Obviously a small benefit from steering it is you get to pick up the little goods on the ground, but even those, like, we try to tune them in such a way that it's nice but not critical, and it kind of leaves things a little bit in no person's land. Design wise, it's not really it's not really a mechanic in the game that the game is meant to be
Mhm.
like foundational, and that's why we did that update where it's really about the route choice. It's really about what your characters are saying, and these two want to go left and these two want to go right, and how's that going to affect your relationships. So um I don't know if that helps, but you kind of just let the coach go. But yeah, we'd love to
Just let the
keep
coach
doing
go.
things. Yeah, that's fair. I guess I saw that chat. Yeah, no, that's got to be annoying. So yeah, feedback definitely taken, and we'll add it to the list. It's like I said, what the hard part right now is there's so many great things. Like when I page over to Discord and kind of look in the feedback channel, and I'll see things with 36 thumbs up and 72 thumbs up, and I'm like, oh, I just want to do all these things. And so yeah, we'll see what we can get to. I know that's not exactly a commitment, but it's just kind of I wanted to illustrate how the decision making works for us, and why sometimes it may seem like, why aren't they doing these super obvious wins that everybody wants? It's like, well, probably because we're making kingdoms, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Maybe a great place to end is the bomb 01 says, with the release of Kingdoms, should we expect slower or less frequent updates to the main game? No, I think you should expect the opposite. We have Kingdoms 1 coming. We have Inhuman Bondage DLC coming. We will have Kingdoms 2, Kingdoms 3. As part of that, we will have quality of life stuff that goes. Um, so we're, as again though, as long as we feel like there's an audience and that we're being supported, and the project or products themselves are profitable and worth the time and financial investment, we're thrilled to continue making them. So um, just want to thank everybody
Yeah.
for showing up. I recognize that this group of people is probably among the most invested and passionate. Um, I hope that you guys learned or gained a little bit of insight or transparency into our thinking around
Yeah.
the acquisition. We'll do more of this stuff in the future, and I encourage you to sort of share and discuss. We're going to make the video of this available for everybody. Um, and yeah, just want to thank you for joining, and thank you for the trust and confidence that you're putting in us in our studio, and just hear that our commitment to Darkest Dungeon, to our team, to our development is unchanged, and in fact, we believe enhanced by virtue of a great partner in behavior.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, everyone. We appreciate it. We know those announcements can be stressful, but I agree 100% with everything Chris said there. It's good.
Okay, I'm gonna hang up now. Everybody, enjoy your day, and
Yeah.
we'll be in touch. Thank you again.
Bye.
Say something, Tyler. Join stage. No one is speaking. Can I speak? Alright, hold on. How do I re-enable streamer mode? Yeah, why is this so quiet? What the frick is happening to my sounds now? Oh, okay, I found it. Oy vey. You're still streaming content? No problem, man. Got more viewers on YouTube than Twitch right now. Holy shit. Crushing. Final thoughts? All right, one sec. Where can you watch the Q&A? I'll post it in a couple hours. I just have to turn off the Discord thing. All right. What even do we do? Final thoughts. Some good news. Some things that scared me a bit. Is stream Jover? No. But the first thing that I like hearing is that the deal sounds closer to what we were hoping. Which is like the Epic deal, where they put a stack of money on the table and then they back out of the room slowly. And then they leave the building. And then they leave the state or the province or the territory. Heard me say once that Black Reliquary mod was made by veterans for veterans. I was wondering when it's good to play because it looks awesome. I mean, you can play it whenever. It's still great content. Am I nervous? In some ways, yeah, the island model is good. There are a lot of good things. But there are things I was kind of hoping they... Just don't search up Cloud Meta. They say what their next IP is? No, they told us nothing. I know, Sammy, I gave you like a thumbs up or something. I tried to help it. Yeah, yeah, no, it's not bad news. It's just Behaviour is very hands-off from what it says, but Behaviour still has the ability to shut him down, which I didn't like. I was really hoping it would just be like Behaviour just gets to put their name on the game, and that's it, and everything else goes on as normal. Oh, people totally overreacted. No, I agree, Sammy. There's risk with whichever path they took. The poster behind me say, what, this one? The Suffer No Sin, it's Vestal. Got a window open right now, but only 3 people have this. Me, British Brat, and Bear Taffy. The signed poster. There's a lot of positives. It sounds like Behaviour is going to bankroll the next game. That's sick. Because before they said they don't even want to talk about a new game. They weren't ready to. Only one person has the Kyojin poster. I'm jealous. I do want that. Also, I wanted the other one, the Duelist and Crusader one that fan art person won. That looked great. Most likely scenarios, nothing changes. Yes. Gabby Frederick stays independent, yeah. I mean, like we're all saying, we just want what's best. We want them to survive, keep working on stuff, and just do what they need to. Because it's not like the Gearbox situation with Hopoo. Gearbox bought the IP, and then Hopoo went to Valve, and then Gearbox put out that DLC. Those are the events that happened that led to Seekers not being great. Red Hook has not sold the IP. Behaviour does not own the IP. Red Hook has not left and gone somewhere else. And something really good to hear was, with the extra resources that they have, Chris and Tyler can actually be present on the game more. They don't have to you know, do all the management logistics that they were. Gotta give a quick overview. They talked about the Behaviour purchase, and they answered some tough questions. Nowadays, to combine financial forces, yeah, it's bad. Not just sold the IP that I've went with it. What? It sounds like they own the IP. But also I thought that... No, I guess it makes sense. They did buy the studio. Like, hearing that Behaviour could shut them down is a bit scary, but like people are saying that's just unavoidable. They answered some questions about like kingdoms. They're still working on it. Behaviour has no ability to influence what they're doing. They reiterated multiple times that Behaviour got them and then said, "You guys are great. We don't want to mess that up." Yeah, Behaviour owns the studio now. Seekers was purely Gearbox-led project where Seekers or Survivors of the Void still had Hopu involvement. Yeah. And even then, you know, sometimes, not saying with Red Hook, but look at Hopu, you know, maybe keeping the old guard there is not always the best thing. Look at Voidling. Universally hated. Did DD2 sell bad? No, it's profitable. They have money. Someone asked that. They said, "Are you guys in the red? That's why you had to do that." And they said, "No, DD2..." Like, Red Hook said they have money. They can survive being independent, but they took the deal so they could get more ambitious stuff done, like a new game. They're working on a new game either now or in the future. Is it bad that you love to hate to love Voidling? Yes. And play DD1, by the way, considering yourself a fan of Red Hook even after all these years. It's golden. Yeah. Feeling like they wouldn't close the studio if they were on their own feet. Yeah, DD2 sold fine. That's why they're giving us a free game mode they could have sold for like 20 bucks. Invalidated? No, I'm not trying to invalidate you. Like, Red Hook has made some tough calls, and they tend to be the right ones. Right? I always bring this up. You look at DD1 back in early access when they added corpses. That pissed off the early access players so much that a lot of them review bombed the game and sent them death threats. Turns out corpses were the right mechanic to add. Next game is close? No, I don't think so. And then they took the Epic deal. Everyone got mad. And they said, "Oh, sellouts, this and that." They didn't use the Unreal Engine. And Epic did what we all hoped, which is they left the money on the table and left the room. Now we have Behaviour. As long as Chris and Tyler are still there and they have the IP, there's much less reason to be alarmed. Yeah, like, Red Hook has captured something that they can handle, like that they can do and they're very good at. And the other thing too is they not only have 11 years of being independent as a studio. Chris and Tyler have been doing games for, I don't know, like 20 years. They've been around, you know. And you look at Zero, one of their senior game devs, he's been in development work since like Mass Effect 1. He worked at BioWare, I think. Like they have people, they have talent that's been around. Being on Epic meant no immediate Steam release. Yeah, that sucked. I won't deny that. That sucked. Just want them to add the money and let them cook. That's right. Yeah, see, that's always a good point to bring up. They could have sold Kingdoms to us, and they didn't. They're selling us the character. They're giving us the game mode for free. And even though DD2 costs $40, it goes on sale constantly. And the DLC they've made so far, Binding Blade, $5 a character for 3D models, 4 paths, skills, shrines, trinkets, all that, mini boss. Like, that's good. That's good value. One of the things that kind of scared me, I was saying that Behaviour has more financial control than I liked hearing. Any news on an upcoming sale for DD1? It literally goes on sale like every other month, like every 4 or 5 weeks or something, so just wait for it. And it sends them death threats for stupid reasons is pathetic? Yeah, of course. I mean, sending death threats in general is pathetic. They confirmed all DD1 characters will come to 2? No. They said before that they love all their original characters, but they also like making new stuff. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's Halloween coming up. They're definitely going to go on sale. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. People thinking that, like, Red Hook's cooked and everything's done. DD1 hit its all-time player peak, like, 6 months ago or something. When was it? 5 months ago, all-time peak. That's like a 9-year-old game. Yeah, you can use SteamDB to track the sales, I think. New DLC gonna have 2 characters? It's 1 character. You get kingdoms for free, and then you get a new character for however much. Take my words back? What? Depends on what Red Hook still owns. Sounds like they own everything. Well, can you say they own everything if Behaviour owns the studio? Like, Behaviour owns the studio, Red Hook still controls everything in there. Like, there aren't Behaviour executives in there saying, make a battle pass. There aren't Behaviour executives in there saying, take our staff and work on this. I'll say love the content, been binging it recently. Thanks for watching, Johnny. 1 character disguised as 2, it might be. $40 isn't especially high looking at industry price. Yeah, it kind of sucks. In that way. Also, they didn't answer BB's question about a content creator program, Sedge. BBR now owns everything will be more correct. I don't know, I keep looking to Hopu. Like, Gearbox owned Hopu. How much creative control did they get? Paid skins. Sad they didn't answer your question about narrative design. Yeah, because they're just focusing on the acquisition today. Square Enix would have been a strange publisher. Yeah, like what publisher could they have gotten that people would have been okay with? Half the publishers are freaking Tencent owned. People won't like that. And then no one wants like the main AAAs like Ubisoft, Activision, Sony. Hope we had a lot of great ideas, but let's not pretend before Gearbox they're perfect. Yes, true statement. Think they'll stop doing DD2 after new DLC and expansion? No, they have plans. It just depends if it sells. If it stops selling, yeah, they're gonna do something else. Valve, oh wait, they don't make games anymore. I'm sorry, have you seen the hit new card game Artifact that crashed and burned like 5 years back? No, I'm talking about Deadlock. Like Xbox would have been horrible, Microsoft. They bought Hi-Fi Rush and then said, yeah, you're done. They said they want to do more Q&As. This is something I have been begging them for years, is like just transparency. You don't have to give us a studio tour on everything you're making, but just like show up, answer some questions periodically. I think my plans are for the new title. They didn't say anything, but they want to keep growing the Darkest Dungeon franchise, so I'm assuming it's a DD3 or a spin-off. Larian should buy Red Hook. Larian's technically indie. I guess Ghost Ship, the DRG people, are we okay with them? Playing Half-Life Alyx, how do you like it? Yeah, no console partners. Devolver? Okay. I can get behind Devolver. Oh yeah, I think Red Hook's a little too big for someone like Devolver. Devolver gets a lot of like small gem indie studios. Red Hook's a gem, but they're getting pretty big. Console DD2 getting updates, yeah, soon. No date, but in a couple weeks. Does Larian publish other games? No. What channel am I in Discord? Oh, okay. I'm still reading the Q&A thread because Chris is still answering questions. Someone asked, will they do another Q&A? He said yes. Are you working on a DD chapter for DVD? Chris said no. Don't mix water and oil, yeah. Like, Red Hook is a studio that is very good at their process, so you don't want to influence that process. If you want to fund that process and share in the profits, that's fine. But you don't want to come in there and start telling them what to do. I asked about spin-offs. I was like, are you guys going to make an XCOM or Divinity style game? And they said, we can't answer right now. I know, Chris was hell of aggro about that. Like, no, we're not doing that. What's the poster next to Vestal? This is a disc plate. And it's a tribute to Miura after he died. It's Berserk. Console getting mod support? No. Yeah, like there aren't many publishers they could have went with that people wouldn't have been happy. Displate plug on stream? No joke. I know Otts has a lot of them. He's the reason I even checked him out. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Do I believe we'll get Houndmaster? Not right now. In the future, who knows? Talking about Midwinter, they mentioned how BHVR, after assimilating it, they actually sent out severance packages and repositioning. Yes, that's the other thing too. People are going, oh, they just, you know, slam dunked Midwinter. And if that is to be believed, or what they said is to be believed, where Behaviour said, hey, here's some severance, and if you want another spot in the company, we'll find you work. And a lot of them said no. They didn't just kick them to the curb. Going to see the comments on this of people saying they were just lying, all of it lies. Dude, the video I made, the news video where I talked about it, I have never had a comment section that upset. Like, they weren't upset at me, but they're still upset about the news, and it didn't matter. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm not jumping in there. Yeah, some of it, Chris and Tyler don't usually go scripted, but that some of the answers felt like they were prepared to answer that, you know? A lot of Doom posting. Does that video have 300 comments? No way. Do I blame them for saying no? No. People can do what they want with their lives. It is 300 comments! What the fuck? Video has 337 comments. Nani. Can find the will to comment? Yeah, I wouldn't either. Enjoy the DD references in chat. Won't be that upset until Alchemist gets shafted. Good. Yeah, it's a good fit. Behaviour said they wanted to kind of, for lack of a better word, like own the horror game creative market. DVD will have DD characters. It might. Chris said he doesn't care about other things taking their characters and using them, like crossovers, but Chris does not want other stuff coming into his game. Where did the Q&A take place? It was on Discord. Egg boiled tier list? Never. Can videos be ratioed? Maybe. The horror house? Yeah. Gotta be careful when you say that and enunciate everything. The horror house. But a DD2 in tier list makes sense? Yeah, of course. But Vessel Secret all the way in the dumpster. Oh, not a crossover with Warhammer 40k, not fit. I mean, Chris likes Warhammer. Fortnite? No. It was bad news for the studio. Don't understand getting very upset about anything to do with a video game. People are just really emotionally invested. You know, it's even funnier because you had all these, like, I'm never going to play DD2 people, which is fine. They can say that. And so they didn't buy DD2. And now they're upset that Red Hook went somewhere else for funding. Like, there are some people that are just never going to be happy. Going to be no DD2. No publisher. Grr. Bertram, Eliminator, Sergeant, Liberators, or Liberators chapter. God, got myself tongue-tied. The reason people are so pissed at Red Hook being bought out is just we experienced that with Risk of Rain 2. Yeah, of course. Astrobots. You like the art in DD1 more? That's fair. Feeling optimistic, but you play DVD and the devs are... Hopefully they don't have to say in the game's development. They don't. It's okay to be wary of Behaviour, but from right now, they don't have... They're not going to meddle. Is what we're hearing. Very close to the Epic deal. Just bunch of money, leave the room. Did I try Tiny Glade yet? What's Tiny Glade? Been defending a lot of the DVD dev choices, I know. I feel like I've heard this name. Did I get it? Oh no, I haven't seen this. Girlfriend might like it. Do you want to build cottages? I can get this to open. It's called Tiny Glade. Oh, you've heard of it? Okay. There's no people? Oh. Oh, okay. Playing right now, it's awesome. Things are seemingly okay unless they make more changes, yeah. People aren't real. You're right, Chad, you're not real. Alright, I got a special thing I'm gonna do with you guys after a minute here. I'm back in a couple minutes. I'm gonna make some coffee and then we're gonna film something fun, hopefully. Be right back.